So, hey guys, here's Robert Bachhoffner from Complexity Card Gaming. Today, I have some special guests for the Monarch podcast that we're going to do. On one side, Marcel Borri,
Hey guys.
and on the other side, the Complexity Card Gaming Monarch god, Norman Wilde.
Hello.
Well, guys, how excited are you for the new Monarch cards?
Yes, I've been pretty excited when someone in our chat mentioned to me okay, there are new Monarch cards coming out, and I was like, yeah, cool stuff, because I've been playing Monarch basically all my life, topped a few tournaments with it, and it's like my most beloved deck. So of course I'm pretty excited for the new cards to come out soon.
And sorry.
Yeah, what about you, Marcel? It's like, I guess you were with the game as long as I am, right? So you've seen some Monarch cards as well.
Yeah, when I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh, that was like around 10 years ago. Then I think Monarch with Reborn, it was really the meta deck back then, and I didn't really like that one. I started liking Monarch when Perfect Circle was around. That was the deck with the Destiny Hero Disc Commander, Reza, the Storm Monarch, and Light of Darkness Dragon. That one I really liked, and after that I felt like Monarchs went a bit like underground. There were always metas when they were around, but it was always more of an underdog deck.
Yeah.
Okay, and you read the new cards, surely. Can you still play it like back then with Treeborn Frog and everything, or is that outdated?
Yeah. So basically, as Marcel said, Monarch has been an underdog deck since everything from the Perfect Cycle engine got limited banned and more powerful cards came out. Monarch had a short comeback, really short, during the head format, 2013 it was, I think, because the game was pretty slow in there, and the head deck had a pretty bad matchup against the Monarchs, which were pretty big. And it's like they were basically floater summons, since you summoned them for free. And in this format, it was all about card advantage. But like this was only for 2 months until players realized, okay, monsters are better than traps again, and they started playing decks like Lightsworn, Sylvan, and Mammal again, and so Monarch, clearly fell short shortly after the national season, I think it was. So yeah, why is Monarch a bad deck? Or it's like why it has been an underground deck all the time? It's like the biggest problem of Monarch has always been that there is no clear linkage between the two cores of the deck. So you need cards, basically you need the Monarchs to be tributed, and you need material to tribute the Monarchs. So there's always the risk of Brick City. So you either draw all your tribute materials, or you either draw Monarchs. And until now, there has been no way to fix this issue, because you basically need to play both, and there has been no good materials. So if there is a good material that you also can tribute, so for example something like a gadget or something like that has an additional effect or influence on the game, then the material itself is good. So you only need to fix to get to your Monarchs quickly. So yeah, basically the new cards that are released soon should fix this issue, that you can combine both cores of the deck. And then of course you need to see is the engine itself, when it fixed it, when it fixed its consistency issues, is it strong enough to compete with all other decks? So is it strong enough to compete with Cosmo, with Water, or with the overreigning arc enemy people right now? Yep.
Well, talking about the new cards.
So Marcel, what do you think? So you played some games with the deck. It's like which of these three decks are it's like the best matchup, and where does the deck struggle?
Yeah, I didn't test that much yet. But yeah, we did some games, and if I played against Pepe, we got some problems there. So I lost some of the games, and there were basically three main reasons for that. And the first was exactly the problem with having too many tributors or non-tributors. Because to start your engine, you usually need one Monarch, and you don't want to have more than one, because if you have one, you can search the next one and the next one and so on. But if you have like three in hand and you just only have one normal summon, you just have like two dead cards in your hand. And I think that's a big problem. Then the second thing was that the deck seemed really weak due to board clears. So if you play against Pepe, your like wonder weapon for that matchup usually is your field spell, which is called Domain of the Two Monarchs. Because if you have the field spell and one tribute summon monster, he isn't able to use his extra deck. So it's really difficult for him to get over your 2800 guy. But if there's a Raigeki or a Dark Hole or something like that, it was really hard to to keep the field spell alive. It's basically possible with either, but it's really hard to accomplish.
Yeah, I also saw that when I recognized that more and more players started playing Dark Hole and Raigeki as an out to the field setups for the paper mirror match. So right now Chalice seems to be a big thing, but also like other cards that can clear the board after Infinity used its negation effect. So when you're playing an underground deck, you always need to keep in mind that there's like generic side deck cards can also affect your deck, and this is clearly the case here with Raigeki and Dark Hole, as Marcel explained. So, but overall in testing, I didn't like the field spell at all, because it's like an all or nothing card. Yeah, you need to basically you're not allowed to use your whole extra deck for a whole tournament, which is clearly like a huge disadvantage. In order to play a card that is easily destructible with a simple mystical space typhoon, or yeah, the same thing can happen if the opponent just tribute summons his own card. And yeah, the only thing that might be irrelevant is that the field spell also reduces the level of a big monarch, so you can tribute summon it easily. But as we discussed earlier, you won't need that effect that often if you start with the small light vessel that summons the dark light.
The Heavenly Squire.
Yeah, that one. The warrior. So usually you want to start with that and then summon its dark.
Eidos the Underworld Squire.
Its dark twin. And if you have that setup, this setup, yeah, you don't care if you can tribute summon one or two monsters. So, if you can tribute summon like using one or two monsters. So the field spell effect here, it has some uses in terms of flexibility, but yeah. So I was thinking of like when playing the Monarch deck, playing it without the main, but I haven't tested it that heavily so far, so I cannot say, okay, how often do I win games with it, or how often it's like yeah. As I said, Monarch is often also called Brick City, so how often you lose to drawing multiple domains.
Mm-hmm. And for the new, or basically the really new Monarchs, so Ether the Heavenly Monarch and Erebeus the Underworld Monarch, how many of them would you play? I think Ether is pretty good with his special sound effect. Marcel, when you test the deck, how was your feeling about them?
I really liked either because this option to summon him in your opponent's turn without having needing a card like Escalation of the Monarchs is really strong, and it can just really catch your opponent off guard because you have, for example, also the Monarch Stormfort and the new trap, the Prime Monarch, which gives you potential tribute material to summon it in your opponent's turn. And yeah, it's pretty good because if you summon him, he's 2/8, and he also summon another card, another Monarch from your deck, maybe another 2/8, or often you can summon Kurats, and that gives you just more board so you don't get OTK'd. Or in case of Kuras, you also have some defensive potential. So let's say your opponent uses his last two cards to set up his Pendulum Scales, you could summon Ether then, summon Kurats, use his effect and destroy one or two of his scales, and of course he can draw one or two cards, but it's really unlikely that he will exactly have two cards to replace the scales again. Or you just destroy a problematic monster like the Cyber Dragon Nova or yeah, whatever is coming up. And on the other hand, Erebius it's really good, but you can only summon him on your turn. So yeah, I think it's okay as a 2-off. You can play 3, but I prefer 2, and maybe you just add another Monarch like the Mega Caius or Mega Zaborg. Those are also potential cards you can add into the deck to get overall more flexibility.
Yeah, same with Testalos. Testalos is pretty strong because most of the decks right now are combo decks. Cosmo especially, for example, like now needs to play also the artifact engine, and if you take away one card from them, basically you see the card you take away, which is something like a confiscation effect from Testalos, the Mega Monarch. And this one is pretty strong, so those effects have always been pretty strong. But it's like we were talking about, it's like Eder and Erebeus. Like Eder is pretty strong because it's like your opponent never knows if it's coming down or not. So he needs to play around it all the time. So it's basically a huge hand trap. Nothing weak like an effect Veiler with 100 or zero attack. But it's like the engine right now is now sending cards to the graveyard you can then use to remove and special summon. Something I learned only today was that you can also special summon the trap from the graveyard in your opponent's turn.
Okay.
This is pretty strong. So you can use the effect of the trap monster when it's in the graveyard, banish something and special it during your opponent's turn. This is quite strong because you can fend off OTKs with it.
Yeah, I also, when we played some games against Cosmo yesterday, I also realized that the trap card may be the key to beat Cosmo, because this deck, as we said, has only the one normal summon, and if there's a Raigeki or Dark Hole, your field may be empty, and then standard Cosmo deck will just try to summon one or two Farm Girls or a Farm Girl and something else, and to go for some OTK moves. And if you have the trap in your grave, you can just summon it in defense position when the Farm Girl tries to attack you directly, and yeah, you can just deny his entire turn with that play. I felt like this was one of the key things you will need to beat Cosmo. And of course you have the Stormfort for that matchup too, which is just super amazing.
The thing is, it's like all the engine that is right now, it's like it lets you draw more cards with the D draw. It lets you add more cards. It gives you more flexibility as you have tenacity of the Monarchs. But still, the old problem stays that you either draw all tribute monsters or the tribute material. Plus, your tribute material is not that safe as it used to be with the frogs, because if your light skier gets veilered, you basically can scoop, because then you need to stop your turn. and everything you try to set up is just gone with a simple beta, which is why Monarchs declined over time in the OCG meta game. I just saw an infographic yesterday as well, which showed that OCG players started playing more betas, and at the same time all Monarch decks declined. So there's definitely a correlation between being with Vedas played and the success of Monarchs with the new engine. Mm-hmm. So something I need to test right now is basically how much. It's like the Monarchs right now can generate huge advantage turns. It's like can generate huge pluses, but I need to figure out how much are those pluses worth. You know, it's like you can draw like 5 cards if you only can summon 1 monster a turn, and it's basically not so much worth. And if you don't draw answers but just druid material, then it's also not it's like that competitive. So that's something I need to figure out. Also, it's like the engine right now is pretty new to the game. I think there has never been a deck that abused something like sending spells or traps to the graveyard and generating plus out of it. So you need to see how this then like in turn generates more advantage in terms of field presence or restricting your opponent's turns. And this is right now only being done via the domain. So Marcel, what do you think? Like how strong or how difficult is an eater for an opponent? Like how hard is it for your opponent to deal with the boards Monarchs usually create?
Yeah, it's really difficult to say. As I said, if they don't have a really board clear like Regeki or Darkhold, it's usually not that easy to get rid of the Ether, because if you have a Tribute Summon monster on board and he tries to get rid of it with like a Castle or something like that, you can always chain the Ether in your hand and Tribute Summon it over it. So if it's a targeting effect, it's hard to get rid of him. But on the other hand, you often just know that it's in the hand because you searched either with the March or Return of the Monarchs, or with the we specialed one with the first Adder and then got it into the hand. And if your opponent know it's there, then I think he has the way to play around it a bit better.
Yeah, which brings me to my next question. What do you think about Mark of the Monarchs? So more March of the Monarchs. So do you think like this card potentially has some uses, because it basically solves all the issues you described? So your Monarchs cannot be destroyed and also cannot be targeted. So field cleaning becomes a bit more difficult. I think this card can be pretty strong, but this depends on how many players will adopt to Monarchs in the meta game and start playing field removal as like spell trap removal.
I honestly see a very big problem in the card. The thing is that in a lot of matchup you will rely to win on your field spell, the Domain. And if you play the March as well, you will just end your turn with Domain and March on the field, and every opponent I think will side, or maybe they will already main in deck 3 Twin Twister. And if they do, then you just give them 2 good targets instead of only the 1 field spell they have to get rid anyway. So that's a bit the thing I don't like so much about the March. And also, the other
play
thing
more lockdown cards, like do it the Italian way, like add Solemn Scolding and add more cards that negate and save the lock.
Yeah, and get an even more inconsistent deck. Yeah.
Yeah, super.
Not that bad. Yeah, I can try that for sure.
Then you would need to learn shuffling.
You pile shuffle creating.
And the other thing that March cannot solve is, even if you assume that everyone is playing Whaler in the main, or in the side at least, the Mark will only deny the Whalers on your big Monarchs. And you already said you often just lose games when your 2 little guys, the Idea or the Eidos, get Whalered. Then your turn is basically over, and March will just do nothing about that. That's not a problem of the card.
That's actually a good point, as I wanted to ask you about your opinion of the Super Quantum monsters that get released in the beginning of February, so right before the YCS Prague, as they basically solved the whale problem on the little guys.
Yeah, that's yes. They only solved the problem because the blue guy, you can use and you can special summon him with emergency teleport, and you can do that in your standby phase. So you will definitely ensure that you can search one of the red guys. The thing is, as we discussed earlier, this just adds more tribute material to the deck, and you need then to figure out how much of the idea, or how's the black guy called?
The black is the Eidos.
Eidos is the small one, yeah.
Yeah, how much? Then you would definitely need to reduce your Eidos idea engine in favor of being more flexible in terms of reacting to Vela. But the engine itself is just too strong. It's like this. The engine itself is like basically setting up your whole duel. Yeah, you have then later in the game potential to special summon back the idea with Aidos, or get back one of your D draws with idea. So everything is based on this on these little guys. So I doubt that the Super Quantums, despite they would add more flexibility, would add more power to the deck.
And what are you thinking about them, Marcel?
Yeah, one problem that you have if you play emergency teleport and summon the blue layer is that you will not have the second tribute material at that point. If you start with Idea, you special summon Eidos, then you have two monsters you can tribute away for your big Monarchs. And that's sometimes a problem. If you have teleport and blue layer, then you still can't do anything. You would need the field spell at that point to reduce your Mega Monarchs level to 6, or something like Stormfort. But on turn 1, for example, Stormfort will do nothing because there are no monsters on your opponent's field. So sometimes you just have teleport and it won't help you at all. That's a bit of a problem. But yeah, I really like that you can play a bit around effect with it in general.
What do you think? Like historically, Monarchs have been a really reactive deck. Do you think you should go first with Monarch, or would you go second?
I would always go second, I think. The only maybe exception was when I play against decks that I know can summon Naturia Beast, but still, first turn it's just really hard for the deck because there are a lot of combo cards in the deck, and usually your first turns are pretty weak. So you really like to have the 6th card already in hand, and yeah, you also like your opponent to have a monster on the field that you can potentially use with Stormfort to tribute summon. So I really dislike going first with this deck. And actually I think that's also a big problem that the deck will have, because you will usually not play an extra deck, because yeah, obviously the domain will only have its effect active if there's no extra deck. So if you play like in a YCS, your opponent will ask you before the round starts if you have side and extra, then you have to say you have no extra. And then, yeah, he knows usually you play Monarchs and he will let you start, I assume. And that's something that is a bit weird, that you will always, yeah, have to start if you lose the dice roll, I think.
But couldn't you play more with the infamous Majesty's and 20s Fiend then, and going like all in on this just one tribute monsters?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. If the problem is really that you cannot summon your big guys, then why it's like don't you get rid of the big guys and just focus on the good old one tribute monarchs, or in this case now Vanity's Fiend and Majesty's Fiend.
What are you thinking about this idea, Marcel?
Yeah, I didn't test that out yet, so I think it will depend mostly how much of an impact the two fiends will have in this meta. I think, for example, Vanity's Fiend, it's not like they are good in every matchup. Maybe there's a matchup where Vanity is better, where Majestic is better. So you again have the potential that you will draw like some kind of brick fiend that is not good for the matchup. I think that the Mega Monarchs have the advantage that they are really good in like every matchup because Rebeos can send away cards from field or hand or even graveyard, and Ether just sets up for more cards, so they are always good. While the fiends they just can brick. But yeah, I think it's really worth to give it a try to use the fiends just because they may win you the game immediately after they are on the field.
I think what is especially cool about Majesty's Fiend is that he's working with the most of the Monarch spell cards like Tennessee, and you can even search it with Return of the Monarchs, which could also be a big impact in my opinion.
Is that
Yes.
possible?
Yes.
Tennessee says reveal one monster in your hand with 2400 attack and 1000 defense, or 2800 attack and 1000 defense.
Ah, that guy has only 1000 defense.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the problem of Vanity's Fiend. He's the one with 1200 defense, so he falls out of that.
Hey, and sometimes you think of, okay, well, why do they change some obvious stats? Like it would have been obvious that they would have given Majesty's Fiends also 1200 defense.
Mhm.
Same thing like with Starbuck was the very first Monarch, and it's the only Monarch up
5.
today that is level 5. So, who was responsible in the Konami card developing center to say, okay, now we only release Monarchs with 6 stars? So,
I think if we're already on this point, a little quiz question for you guys. Tell me 2 other pretty famous monsters that you can use with Tennessee. So 2800 attack and 1000 defense, or 2400 attack and 1000 defense.
yeah, one of them would be Dark Armed Dragon,
Yeah.
and there was another one.
Marcel?
I'm thinking about it.
We know we need Rusty here. It's like Rusty is a guy from Berlin, and he knows every card by heart. Every card. You can show him a small slip from an image of a card, and he just immediately knows what the card does.
Okay.
And I have problems remembering what all the new cards and Monarch cards do.
Well, the other
Tell
one
us.
isn't that specific, the card itself. It's just like all Klee monsters.
Ah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, let's play Monarch. Total helmet. Total helmet confirmed.
Well, I want to ask you actually, guys, if you see any potential to increase the consistency of Clifford with the spell cards, as they basically all work together with them, more or less. Like Return for searching, Tennessee for searching the Destiny Draw, and so on.
Yeah, the problem is they just don't solve the problem that there is only one tool, and I think the tool is still the key of the deck, and if it's destroyed, then it's just gone, and yeah, so the new cards of the Monarch deck cannot solve that problem, so I don't think that will really help. But yeah,
Yeah.
that idea to build some hybrid deck with Klee and Monarch in general is pretty funny and interesting. But yeah, I don't think it will work out.
Yeah, it's like how much defense has Clifford Disc?
1000.
Hmm.
Yeah, they all expect towers,
And
tool,
Sky
and
Base, I
sky
guess.
base. Yeah, this three
Hmm.
doesn't fit, but all other Klee monsters are
It,
fitting the 2-8 and 1000 defense.
yeah, or 2-4 and
Yeah.
defense.
By the way, what happened to the floodgate card? Lose one turn. Is it? It's like is the card still good against people?
It's actually not that bad, as it it's all they basically, yeah, they need to play something like Twin Tooth or something like that in the main,
Hmm.
as Exceeds normally won't stay on the field. On the other hand, you still can just summon the Rafflesia,
Hmm.
which you will never use on your turn. When it gets summoned, you just can leave it on the field and interrupt you on your turn. So I don't know. I think it's okay in my opinion. It's not that great, like Anti-Spell Fragrance, for example.
Yeah.
Your Marcel?
I didn't test enough so far, but yeah, I don't think it's as strong as it was in past meta games. But it may be alright. I think if you really want to play an anti-deck, then it's still okay, because it's just a floodgate that remains on the field.
Yeah. Okay, talking about Monarch, so it's like also how high is the impact of anti-spell fragrance on the new Monarch deck?
Well, it doesn't affect you as much as Pepe, but that's pretty obvious, I think. Um, I could see actually Monarch players boarding this card, as you're basically the only cards that you're using after the first turn, in my opinion, are Stormforth, and that's it, because the Destiny Draw, you're going to use them on your first turn and going through your deck as fast as possible. The field spell is basically the same thing, you're just using it once and then it stays on the field, so it could be played, in my opinion.
Yeah, the problem is, when we tested, I really realized that the deck is really bad against Naturia Beast, because you usually play around 20 spell cards in the deck. But Fragrance is a lot weaker. The problem is that most decks that will use anti-spell Fragrance will not be able to OTK you in their second turn. So you just can set your cards like the Stormfort, the D-Draw, and all the other stuff, then he just does something, and then the next turn you can go off. Or yeah, if you just draw your little guys, the Squires, Idea, or Eidos or something like that, you can still play actually.
Yeah. Um. So talking about it's like surviving and it's like interrupting. What do you think about hand traps in Monarch? It's like back in my days, it's like talking about
I think I
internet
think
memes.
I think if you play Monarchs, it's absolutely necessary to play hand traps. The thing is, you have a lot of engine spell cards, and in generally a lot of cards that fits your engine, so the space is not that big, and there are a lot of draw mechanisms. Like you have the D draw, then you have your Kuras, which can also be used in your opponent's turn thanks to Ether. So there are just situations where you just can draw cards, and it's absolutely necessary to draw a hand trap at that point to have some kind of defense. And yeah, the fact that you can summon Kuras in your opponent's turn and draw two cards makes hand traps a lot better in this deck than real traps, I think.
Yeah. So what do you think? It's like which hand traps should you play? It's like obviously if you play the Super Quantum Engine, then you should play Ghost Augur because it can be summoned with emergency teleport. But the good old question, Veiler or Maxi, still remains.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of playing Maxi if you don't have anything to draw into to save yourself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think just Ether isn't enough in my opinion as option to draw into. So if I would play Maxi, probably with Battle Trap, like Battle Fade or something like that, in my opinion. But then it goes in the direction of what Marcel said, that you're just having these weird hands with Maxi and a lot of engine cards, and you can't do anything. And if your open doesn't do that much, just like summon a monster attack and everything, your hand is still death. Or dead.
Yeah.
I personally really liked Snow Rabbit in the deck at least when I was playing against Pepe, because it has a lot of different uses in that matchup. And I think it's never a dead card, because there's always something like the monkey board you can kill, or you just wait out for the Nova, for example, and for the Ptolemeus, of course. Or you can just wait if you know they play with Naturia Beast. It's just necessary to play Snow Rabbit, I guess, to get rid of it and have a chance to play at all.
Yeah. So you would rather play hand traps than real traps? Because like I was thinking about like going into a real floodgate game. So playing cards like Light and Darkness Dragon, Christia, Vanity's Fiend, alongside March of the Monarchs, plus Scoldings or the new counter trap that has been released, where you need to discard one card. And
Ultimate
Providence.
yeah.
Yeah, that one. It's like,
Yeah, but that would be like a lot more of an anti-deck the way you describe it. I think you can
Yeah.
compare that a bit to the Apex Avian Magician deck we had back at, for example, MTS Lille, which just used Scolding to back up his super strong Floodgate-like monsters. And if you play with Christia or something like that, it would basically be the same purpose here, I think. And that may be okay.
yeah,
But if you're playing it with real traps, you would have to start the games basically, otherwise they aren't as strong. And if you're playing against Pepe at the moment, they always start, or at least that's what I'm seeing, that they trying to start, make a huge field with Rafflesia Infinity or Rafflesia Natura Beast or anything like that.
Yeah, but as I said, I'm really not sure if Pepe will do that against Monarchs, because if there's no extra deck, you know it's Monarchs you're playing against, and I'm not sure if it's really okay to go first. The thing is, if you look at your extra deck, let's just assume you play a list that cannot summon Naturia Beast. Then, if you go through your extra deck, in the Pepe mirror match, you can set up really strong boards with like Infinity and Nightmare or Rafflesia. But against Monarchs, Infinity is of course strong, but it will only negate one card, and Rafflesia or Pleiades or the Nightmare, they will just do nothing. So I don't know if going first is really correct with Pepe against Monarchs. I doubt so, honestly.
I think it's basically a question if your deck is able to deal with the field spell, because if you're letting Monarch start, you have to assume that they start with the field spell and tribute summon monster.
Okay, yeah, that may be something you keep in mind on game one, right?
yeah. So it's like, how easy is it for Monarch to play to play around in Affinity? So you can usually bait out one card and then use Stormforth, but right now it's like it's pretty hard to bait out that one card from your opponent. It's like basically all you can do is wait for your summon. If you don't summon anything, it's like your tribute summon. I mean, if you don't start tribute summoning anything, he doesn't need to negate anything. So you need to it's like build your deck correctly in order to deal with an Infinity. Otherwise, it would just kill you. For example, like basically if you use Stormforth on Infinity, you most likely must negate it. But how do you deal with it afterwards? Especially if they play, it's like people stop playing those fancy trap cards, right? Yeah, I haven't seen them in some lists.
Yeah.
So. No, that's good. But yeah. Okay, so you would, in order to deal with an Infinity, you would definitely need the Stormforce in order to bait out the effect. Then you would need Idea or you see, I forgot the name again.
Idea
Eidos.
or Eidos, yeah.
And if you don't have Idea but just Eidos, then you would need a tribute monster that you can summon, either backed up by domain or that only has 6 stars itself.
Mhm.
If you have Idea, then you most likely can summon something and get rid of Infinity. But it's like a free card combination to stop the Infinity.
Mhm.
And
And if they go into Infinity Rafflesia, it's like game. Because they just can destroy with Rafflesia and the Treacherous Trap hold both of your monsters.
yeah, it's like, for example, if you now given the fact that it's like if they have Rafflesia, I wouldn't use Idea because then obviously they have 2 targets for Treacherous.
Mhm.
If you just go for Eidos, then they would need to destroy either their Infinity or their Rafflesia itself in order
But
to.
I mean, that's no problem to destroy their own Rafflesia together with the Eidos because they know you can't do anything for the rest of the turn. Normally.
Yep. But it's like, yeah, okay, new line of thought. So if you start with Idea, then Treacherous shouldn't be a problem because even if they destroy both of your monsters, then you can simply just use Eidos Reborn effect and summon back Idea, and then you have at least 1 tribute material. Still, it's so it's kind of hard, and I think like most mirror matches, you also lose if the opponent starts Infinity and Rafflesia. But there are ways to play. There are ways to play around this board. Still, it's kind of hard. So depending on how the paper deck is built, as Marcel said, if you don't have an out to domain, I would go first and bank on or pray for heaven that either the Monarch player bricks or that you can set up like a big board with Rafflesia and Infinity.
But if you're talking about Naturia Beast, Landrope, the Rock Vassal, do you know the card?
Yep. I would play at least 1.
I also wanted to state that because I think it's also pretty good against Rafflesia.
Yep.
Just to force them to use it, and it's a special summoned monster, so you still have your normal summon open if you have something like an Idea or the Eidos, which I think is pretty cool. It also, that's not.
It is coming out with the Monarch structure deck, right?
Yeah.
The rocker, yeah. Okay. I'm going to buy it on Friday, then I will at least have some surprises what cards are also in it.
Yeah, what I can say about the card is I at least saw some of them in the side decks when I checked the Japanese deck list, so maybe for some purpose like that. But I'm not sure if it's really good enough to main deck it. It may brick maybe too often.
Yeah, but yeah, it's the same issue we discussed earlier: tribute material versus Monarchs, and finding the right balance between the 2 of them. And I think the new cards didn't solve that issue quite good. It's like, and it's kind of hard. What Monarch would need would be something like a Monarch that you can also use as a soul exchange with a soul exchange effect. You know,
I think what you would need if you really want to fix like all problems would be some kind of Monarch spell or trap that can search a Monarch monster from the deck. That would, I think, fix a lot of the problems. Because right now, if you don't have a Monarch, there is no way to search one. Because all the spells only search the other spells and so on. So if you have a spell that could search Monarch, that maybe could solve that problem. But yeah, right now we just don't have something like that. And I don't think there's
that,
something
that,
in
that
pipeline.
reminds me of the moment when Summoner's Art got released, like ages ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I read the card and I was, yeah, finally something you can search your Monarchs for. But then I reread the card and I was like, okay, only normal monsters. I was pretty sad back then.
I think the card would be banned if you could search effect monsters, probably.
No, of course.
But yeah.
Well, if we're going through the attributes and types of the monsters, I think Erebeus you could search with Goblin Zombie, but I think there's no reason to play Goblin Zombie just to search Erebeus.
Yeah.
But for the other monsters, it doesn't look that great.
Yeah, and the problem is, even if there are cards to search them, then you have to include those cards into the deck as well, which will most probably also have potential to give you brick hands. So yeah, it's just some kind of circle that won't close.
Yeah, so I think like coming back to our initial question, did the new cards solve any issues of the previous Monarch decks? So we have now a bit more consistency with the D-draw and potential to use more Return of the Monarchs. And also the materials themselves have some good side effects, like adding back your engine or special summoning back something. But still, as we already pointed out right now, there's no way to get into the game if you don't draw a Monarch card, like Monarch itself. Second thing is, how strong is the new engine against the metagame? It's like, against paper, you usually bank on floodgates, either it's like with the old Trivet monsters like Vanity's Fiend or Christia, or with the new spell. And so your strategy is pretty weak towards A, mass field removal, and B, spell trap removal. So basically cards that are being played, nothing uncommon. Mm-hmm. If you get your engine rolling, this is something we still need to test. If the Monarch deck can compete, if the engine is rolling without the floodgates against the meta game. So is it enough to just summon an Eater and get the game engine running? Can you really convert your pluses into wins? Mm-hmm. And basically, how the metagame will also react to Monarchs entering the scene. So what cards will be played? Will the players shift to Veiler? What side deck cards will be played? Maybe there will be some players that will side Mask of Ridstrick, which I doubt, but still you have those over-cautious people sometimes that say, okay, like I'm only siding for one matchup and I will totally destroy this matchup. So it is also kind of important because you're basically playing with 15 cards less than all other competitors at the tournament. That those 55 cards are like in the best constellation. Otherwise, you won't have a chance. So I think the last topic for today we should discuss is the side deck. Mm-hmm. So what cards should be included? What cards can be included, or what should the side deck do to fix your issues? One thing I thought about for the main deck was the artifact engine, because you can basically also destroy your sets guide with Kuras if you summon it via Eater. So, but this is like, okay, extra Döner mit Soße. It's like Dürüm Döner mit extra Fleisch und Käse. But still, it is something that might happen if players start playing more removal. So the artifact engine could then potentially give you some ways to A, have turret material, B, stop your opponent from doing his wombo combo things, and C, to save you more time to draw into Monarchs. But still, you need to figure out if this. It's like Artifact Engine has always been a huge brick factor, so this still needs some testing. But regarding side deck, this will then depend on if you're going for the floodgates. Game one, for example, like good side deck cards would be, as Robin pointed out, Majesty's Fiend, because he's basically you can use him with all the Monarch cards as well. Vanity's Fiend, as it stops special summons. Christia, but I think there's more. But I haven't played so many games during the last half years. Like I just realized that all I did was just it's like leading complexity card gaming in the background and writing some coverages, but I didn't even touch cards. So tell me, what are good side deck cards?
Well, it's always depending what you're expecting. What was that? What was that?
I don't know.
Okay, never mind. I think a problem that you have is you can't play Cyber Dragons with the Chimera Fortress Dragon, which is, in my opinion, pretty strong against Cosmo. So you could play Iron Wall, but also Iron Wall infects your deck quite a lot.
Yeah, Iron Wall is absolutely unplayable in my opinion, because you can only summon either in your opponent's turn by banishing a spell or trap from your grave, a Monarch spell or trap. So
well,
yeah,
Iron
you
Wall is
give
also
stab up
nothing.
and you also give up the D-draw banish effect, so that I don't think you can play Iron Wall in this deck.
Well, so otherwise, just let's start with the Pepe matchup. Like I said, Anti-Spell Fragrance is pretty strong. Also, I like Vanity's Fiend. However, we saw at the YCS Sydney that a lot of Pepe players started to side either Forbidden Chalice or Psyblocker. And against both cards, Vanity's Fiend isn't that great. So is there anything else you could potentially side deck?
Scolding!
And the thing is, if you, let's say you start with Vanity's Fiend and with the field spell, that may still be okay, because their Psy blocker will not be able to deal with both cards, so
That's true.
may still work out. But I don't. Psy blocker is really a bad card against the Monarch. It can just negate your Floodgate card, spell or monster, and then you just have nothing that they can play normally. That's really
So-
something I don't like.
I think against the Pepe matchup, it's more about how to side correctly against their side cards than side something to lock them out.
Yeah. One thing I really felt uncomfortable when I played against Pepe is you never know if you need to side in something like Twin Twister or MST against a potential Mask of Restrict, because that card can just completely shut you out of the duel. You don't know if they side it, that's the problem. So it's just like, okay, do I side Twin Twister, which may be really bad if they don't have any masks, or do I not do and just risk auto losing to the card?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like how I dealt with these problems in the past, and I think also Joshua is quite fond of this idea, is if they have it, then you lose the game. Yeah, something like, okay, if players start playing Fiends game one in paper, then yeah, okay, let it be. So you lose that one game, but
You win the second or the third game.
yeah, it's more calculating the overall probability that your opponent is playing Mask of Restrict. So if you're in Swiss and it's game two, I would rather play still consistent, go for consistency than for expecting the total blowout. You might
well,
get blown out in game two. You lose maybe the match because of it, but you would have won. You would have lost all other 9 games, for example, if you would have drawn into Twin Twister, but nothing to destroy.
That's a good point, but consistency isn't like the the best thing about the Monarchs deck.
That's a different topic. So yeah, that's also one thing that might be really troublesome for Monarch, is to A, find the right balance in the main deck, and B, then it's like siding correctly, so which cards you can remove from your deck without making it unplayable.
Yeah, and that's a problem I think we didn't really speak about yet. If you look at the standard Monarch list, you will realize that more or less all the good spell cards, the Monarch spell cards, have to be 3 times in the deck, which is somehow really weird because, for example, Return of the Monarch or the field spell, those doesn't feel like cards I would want to include 3 times in my deck. But there's a reason why you basically are forced to play them 3 times if you want to get a full potential of your deck, and that's the effect of the Panthetism, the D-draw. If you banish it, you have to reveal 3 cards from your deck, and then your opponent gives you one of their choice. So if you want to get to the field spell, for example, consistently, you have to play 3. So he is forced to give it to you, or you have to play 3, let's say Monarch Stormfort, because then he's forced to give it to you if you want it. And that's also a bit the problem if you are side decking. If you side out some of the Monarch spell traps, you won't have that guaranteed search with the D-draw second effect anymore, and that's really weird, I think. That's something I absolutely don't like about the deck.
Yeah, like one card I could potentially think of siding out is Kuras. But you need to find, of course, more cards than just 1 or 2 Kuras to...
Yeah, the problem is also, you shouldn't forget that Kuras is still a Monarch that can let you play. So if you have Kurats with, I don't know, Tenacity or with Return or something, you can still start playing because you can search maybe your Ether and then you're in the game. And if you side those out, you give up even more monsters from your main deck. So I don't like siding out Kurats if you don't side in other Monarchs.
Or Monarch likes cards with the 2400 attack and 1000
Yeah,
defense.
sure. Yeah, you could side in Majesty's Fiend in that slot. That would maybe work out, right?
Yeah. And yeah, so it's like one potential strategy could be to build your main deck like only towards paper, and then look at the meta game, how it develops, and how which cards are being sided for the Monarch matchup, and then side 2 to 4 cards to fix this issue, and the rest of the cards for the side deck, then you should then devote them to your other matchups like Cosmo or Water. So, because I would imagine that paper is like back then as Necros is like the most played deck in Prague. So I would say you should build your main deck on targeting this deck. And I doubt that you have any problems with Cosmo, even though some players said that Cosmo is like can easily beat Monarch, but I doubt it because Stormfort is just as strong out against any of their fucking spaceships.
Well, I think in this matchup it's basically, if you're not getting OTK'd, you should win the matchup.
Yeah.
I think that's the point against Cosmo where I would try to side something like Waboku or something in this direction to just not get OTK'd.
Yes.
Scapegoat!
Well,
Yeah, you
could side scapegoats, but there's no reason for that because you can't reboot them for a tribute sound, right?
No, you can't. But still, you can
you can side in enemy controller as well, and then yeah, not taking over the spaceships. So yeah, maybe not the best choice.
But Could
Yeah,
be.
what about this? I recently remembered one card that came out in between, and which no one really yeah, it's like realized that it's like actually this reminds me of another good card. The first card is this Swordmaster. You can special summon whenever you get a direct attack,
Yes.
and he destroys then the attacking monster if it has less attack than his defense points. I think it's like 2,400 or something.
Mm-hmm. I'm just
Um,
searching it.
Yeah,
It
that
is
would be
it's
true.
light level 7 and
Yeah, Swordsman of Revealing Light is the
yeah.
one. It's level 8 because the Japanese guys used it in the Dragon Ruler decks back then when they had the Dragon Ruler and Dark Matter Dragon still alive. So they played Swordsman in the main deck sometimes because they could overlay it after the summon.
But you thought about it against Cosmo, right? Or
I know not against Cosmo especially, but just as a card keeps you alive. Yeah. So as a hand trap that could also stop, for example, Infinity. Yeah.
The problem is, as Robin said, I think if you side some monsters that can end the battle phase or do something like that, you want to side them in against Cosmo, and I don't think you can side multiple monsters
Is
like
there
that. So
there was this one card? It's like I just remember this. Like that some players also started playing in Dragon Rulers. It's something like a huge stone. With 2,850 defense, and you can special summon it if your opponent performs 2 or 3 special summons, and
yeah,
then
I know this card. It's where is it?
something like Triceratops, but I don't know
It's
exactly.
it's the other one, I think. I know it's Three Fortress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's it. Yeah,
Three Fortress.
Triceratops.
Well, the problem with this card is it has 2,800 defense, and at the moment 2,800 is like nothing because Destroyer gets over it, but also Ignister, Prominence Dragon, like the two biggest fears of every deck that isn't Cosmo or Pepe. They just run over it.
yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, if Monarchs would be the meta number one, it would be pretty cool to have 2/8 because I think you can't get over it. Yeah.
Yeah, but for the Monarch mirror match, it would be really bad, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't even know how would you play the Monarch mirror match. I think we tried that yesterday evening once, but
It's really weird. I think one of the key plays in the mirror match is if he Stormforce you, that you have to chain your Ether and then summon Kuras and destroy both of your own monsters and just hope he doesn't have own stuff he can sacrifice to summon his Mega Monarch. But the matchup is really weird. The dynamic in this deck is just very strange.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we discussed most of the points. Robin, do you have anything to add?
well, I don't think so. Marcel?
Couldn't think about something specific right now.
Well, guys out there, if you have anything else you want to discuss, or if you have any ideas what we could discuss, just
Yeah,
leave it in the
Or any
comments.
questions about the deck in general that we
Exactly.
didn't get to.
And
Okay.
that's it for today. So thank you very much, Marcel and Norman.
Yep.
Like always, guys, thank you for watching the podcast, liking our Facebook page, subscribing our YouTube channel. We also have Twitch, Instagram, and something else, Norman.
Twitter, for
Our
example.
Twitter and our website and more stuff to come. So
Perfect. Okay,
Stay curious.
so stay tuned, guys. Bye.
bye.
See ya.